The Resolute was not a warship. She was a diplomatic vessel, built for comfort and speed rather than combat. Her hull was sleek and elegant, painted in the colors of Earth, blue and green and white. She carried no heavy weapons, only basic defensive systems that would be useless against any real threat. But she was fast, faster than most ships in the galaxy. And that speed had saved Daniel Hart and his crew more than once over the years. Commander Kevin Brooks stood on the bridge as the ship entered faster than light travel, watching the stars stretch into long lines of light before disappearing entirely. He was a military man in his early 40s, with short gray hair and a face that showed the stress of too many difficult missions. He had commanded the Resolute for 7 years, and in that time he had learned to trust Ambassador Hart completely. Something had changed in the ambassador, something that Kevin could not quite identify. Daniel entered the bridge and stood beside him, staring at the swirling colors of faster-than-light space through the main viewing window. 17 days, Kevin said. That is how long until we reach Nexus Prime. What happens after that is less certain. We will request an audience with the Council, and if they refuse... Daniel did not answer immediately. He pulled out a small datapad and began scrolling through information, his eyes moving quickly across the screen. The Zythrani delegate has already filed a motion to have us turned away at the docking authority. They do not want us anywhere near Nexus Prime. Kevin frowned. The Zythrani? Why would they care? They have trade agreements with the Vrakari Dominion. Our destruction opens new markets for them. They have been quietly profiting from Vrakari expansion for decades. That is disgusting. That is politics. The galaxy runs on self-interest, Commander. Every species, every government, every individual is looking out for themselves first. Morality is a luxury that most cannot afford. Kevin turned to look at the ambassador directly. I have known you for 7 years, sir. You never talked like this before. Daniel put the datapad away and met his gaze. I spent 30 years believing that I could make a difference through words. That if I just found the right argument, the right approach, I could convince others to do the right thing. But words only work when the other side is willing to listen. The Council has already decided that humanity is not worth saving. No speech, no matter how brilliant, will change that. Then why are we going? Because the speech is not for them. It is for everyone else. Kevin did not understand, but he had learned long ago not to question the ambassador's plans until they were revealed. Daniel Hart had a way of seeing patterns that others missed, of turning impossible situations into victories. If he said there was a purpose to this journey, Kevin believed him. The days passed slowly aboard the Resolute. Daniel spent most of his time in his quarters, studying reports and writing notes that he shared with no one. Laura Mitchell tried several times to get him to talk about his plans, but he always changed the subject or gave vague answers that told her nothing. On the 10th day, she cornered him in the ship's small dining area during the quiet hours when most of the crew was sleeping. You are hiding something from me, she said, sitting down across from him. I have known you too long not to see it. Daniel looked up from his meal. I am not hiding anything. I am simply not ready to share everything yet. That is the same thing. No, it is not. Hiding implies deception. I am being patient. Laura leaned forward. The crew is worried. Kevin is worried. I am worried. You have barely slept in 10 days. You spend hours staring at reports that you will not let anyone else see. And every time someone asks you about the Council, you get this look in your eyes, like you are planning something terrible. Daniel set down his fork and folded his hands on the table. Do you trust me, Laura? I have trusted you for 15 years. Then trust me a little longer. What I am planning is not terrible. It is necessary. And when the time comes, you will understand why I could not tell you sooner. She wanted to argue, to demand answers, but something in his voice stopped her. There was a weight to his words that she had never heard before, a certainty that went beyond normal confidence. Whatever he was planning, he believed in it completely. "Just promise me one thing," she said quietly. "Promise me that when this is over, humanity will still have a chance." Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. "I promise you that when this is over, humanity will have more than a chance. We will have a future." On the 17th day, the Resolute dropped out of faster-than-light travel on the edge of the Nexus Prime system. The station itself was visible even from this distance, a massive structure larger than most moons, covered in lights that glittered like stars against the darkness. Thousands of ships moved around it, diplomatic vessels from every corner of the galaxy, each one carrying representatives of species that had been traveling between stars when humanity still lived in caves. Kevin stood on the bridge as the docking request was transmitted. The response came back within minutes. "Denied," the communications officer reported. "The docking authority says we do not have proper clearance. Tell them we are requesting an emergency audience with the Council on behalf of Earth." Another message, another denial. Daniel entered the bridge and listened as the exchanges continued. Each request was met with another excuse, another bureaucratic obstacle, another polite refusal. The Scythrani were working behind the scenes, using their influence to keep humanity away from the Council. "They will not let us dock," Kevin said finally. "We can wait here for weeks, and nothing will change." Daniel smiled slightly. "Then we will not wait." He walked to the communication station and began typing a message himself. Laura watched over his shoulder, her eyes widening as she read the words. "You cannot send that," she whispered. "It will cause a scandal." "That is exactly what I am counting on." He pressed send. The message went out to every diplomatic channel, every news network, every public forum on Nexus Prime. It contained detailed information about Scythrani financial dealings with the Vrikari Dominion, proof that they had been profiting from genocide for decades. Within hours, the story would spread across the galaxy. The Scythrani delegates' protests suddenly became very quiet. 3 days later, the Council granted Daniel Hart 1 hour to address them. He had gotten what he wanted. Now the real work would begin. The Council chamber was designed to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling stretched upward for nearly a mile, disappearing into shadows and soft blue light. The walls were covered in carvings that told the history of galactic civilization, stories of wars and treaties and alliances that stretched back over 100,000 years. Humanity appeared nowhere in those carvings. To the Council, humanity was too young and too unimportant to deserve a place in history. The 12 ruling species sat in raised platforms that circled the central floor, each platform higher than the one below it. Visitors had to stand at the bottom and look up, craning their necks like children asking permission from adults. The design was intentional. It reminded everyone who entered that they were small, temporary, insignificant compared to the ancient powers that ruled the galaxy. Daniel Hart walked to the central platform alone. His footsteps echoed in the vast space, the only sound in a chamber built to hold thousands. He wore his formal diplomatic uniform, freshly pressed, every button polished. He looked like a man attending a funeral. The protocol for addressing the Council was strict and unchanging. Visitors were required to bow to each delegation in turn, starting with the Morvathi and ending with the Keth Collective. The ritual typically took 20 minutes, a formal acknowledgement of the Council's authority and the visitor's humble position. Daniel stood in the center of the floor and did not bow. He did not even look at the platforms above him. He simply waited, standing straight with his hands clasped behind his back. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Delegates from 100 observer species whispered to each other in confusion. No one had ever refused to bow before. It was unthinkable. High Arbiter Velcanus of the Morvathi spoke first. The Morvathi were beings of living crystal, their bodies made of geometric shapes that pulsed with inner light. They had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years before the other species rose to challenge them, and they still considered themselves superior to all others. Ambassador Hart, Velcanus's voice echoed through the chamber like glass breaking. You stand before this council in violation of 17 established protocols. You have manipulated our processes, released private information to damage our members, and demanded an audience that your species has not earned. You will explain yourself immediately. Daniel looked up at the crystalline figure. His voice was calm and clear when he spoke. I came here to beg. A sound came from the Zythrani platform, something between a laugh and a hiss. The Zythrani were tall and thin, with pale skin and eyes that reflected no light. They had built their civilization on trade and manipulation, and they despised humanity for exposing their dealings with the Vrikari. Daniel ignored them and continued. I came here to describe how the Vrikari burned 3 of our colony worlds last month, how they killed 2 million people, including women and children and elderly who could not escape, how they broadcast the screams of the dying across every communication channel, so that we would understand what awaited us if we resisted. The chamber was silent now. Even the whispers had stopped. I came to beg you to save us, to ask you, the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, to protect a young species that cannot protect itself. I came to appeal to your sense of justice, your compassion, your basic decency as thinking beings. He paused and let the silence stretch. But I realize now that begging would accomplish nothing. You have already made your decision. You looked at humanity and calculated the cost of helping us against the risk of making an enemy of the Vrikari. And you decided that we were not worth the trouble. Velcanus leaned forward, crystal facets catching the light. Ambassador, this council does not make such calculations lightly. The Vrikari Dominion commands military force beyond anything your species can imagine. Interference in their affairs would risk retaliation against our own worlds. We have a responsibility to protect our citizens. From what? Daniel's voice sharpened. The Vrikari have never attacked a council species. They only prey on the weak, the isolated, the species that have no one to protect them. You are safe. You have always been safe. Your neutrality is not principle. It is cowardice, dressed in diplomatic language. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted objections in a dozen different languages. Security forces began moving toward the central platform, weapons drawn. Daniel raised his hand, and something in his bearing made them stop. You have built your civilizations on the bones of species you refuse to help, he continued, his voice rising above the noise. The Osrani begged for your help 70 years ago. You refused. They are extinct now. The Velith asked for protection 40 years ago. You debated for 6 months, while the Vrikari slaughtered them. The 100 worlds of Keswick sent diplomats to this very chamber, stood on this very floor, and pleaded for mercy. You gave them silence. Velcanus's crystal form flickered with agitation. Those situations were complex. You cannot understand the political considerations involved. I understand perfectly. You were afraid. You are still afraid. And because of your fear, billions of innocent beings have died while you watched from the safety of your ancient stations and comfortable worlds. A new voice spoke, soft and musical, like wind through autumn leaves. The Telaxian delegate rose from her platform. The Telaxians were tall and graceful, with feathered crests and eyes that changed color with their emotions. They were known throughout the galaxy as philosophers and diplomats, beings who valued peace above all else. Ambassador Hart, she said gently, We understand your pain. Truly we do. But violence only creates more violence. If we intervene against the Vakari, we begin a war that could destroy half the galaxy. Is that what you want? More death? More suffering? Daniel looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but carried clearly through the chamber. I want my people to survive. I want my children and grandchildren to grow up free. I want humanity to have a future. And I have learned, after 30 years of diplomacy, that wanting is not enough. Words are not enough. Peace is not enough. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. Security forces raised their weapons, but he simply pressed a button. A holographic display bloomed around him, filling the center of the chamber with light. This is not a request, he said. This is a declaration. The council fell silent, and Daniel Hart began to show them what humanity had been hiding. 6,000 light-years away, Amy Turner sat in a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains and watched the live broadcast from the council chamber. She was Earth's Secretary of Defense, a woman in her late 50s with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many reports of death and destruction over the past decade. Around her, the Joint Chiefs of humanity's military forces sat in silence, their faces lit by the glow of dozens of screens. They had known this moment was coming. They had planned for it, prepared for it, waited for Daniel Hart to play his part perfectly. But seeing it happen, watching the ambassadors stand alone in the heart of galactic power and reveal secrets that had been hidden for 30 years, still took their breath away. In the council chamber, holographic images floated around Daniel like stars. Star maps showed Vakari fleet movements and human colony positions. But they also showed something else, something that made even the ancient powers of the galaxy lean forward in shock. Shipyards, hidden in asteroid fields, underground factories on 100 different worlds, training facilities that had been operating in secret since before most current politicians were born. Numbers scrolled across the display, fleet counts, and troop deployments, and weapon specifications that should have been impossible for a species as young as humanity. 30 years ago, Daniel said, his voice calm and steady, human scouts witnessed what the Vakari did to a species called the Mirath. They watched as an entire civilization was destroyed in less than a year. Every city burned, every child enslaved, every memory erased, and they understood that one day the Vakari would come for us. He gestured, and the display shifted to show a network of hidden bases spread across human space. We did not wait for that day to arrive. We did not trust that diplomacy would save us. We did not believe that the galaxy would come to our rescue when the time came. So, we prepared. Velconis's crystal form pulsed with agitation. This is not possible. Our surveillance networks would have detected such preparations. You cannot hide 4,000 warships from the combined intelligence services of 12 civilizations. And yet we did. Daniel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Your surveillance networks see what they expect to see. Primitives, children, a young species struggling to understand technology that older civilizations mastered long ago. You never looked closely because you never believed we were worth watching. The Zythrani delegate rose from his platform, his pale face twisted with anger. This is a bluff, a desperate lie designed to frighten us into action. Humanity does not have the resources or the knowledge to build such a force. Daniel turned to face him directly. Is it a lie? Are you willing to bet your species on that assumption? Because I promise you, if the Zythrani interfere with our war against the Vakari, you will discover just how real our capabilities are. The chamber fell silent. The threat hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore. In the gallery above, Laura Mitchell watched, with tears running down her cheeks. She had known that Daniel was planning something, but she had never imagined anything like this. The man she had worked with for 15 years, the diplomat who believed in peace, and patience and understanding, had been hiding this from everyone. From the Council, from the galaxy, from her. She understood now why he could not tell her. The secret was too big, too dangerous to share with anyone who did not absolutely need to know. One slip, one careless word, and 30 years of preparation would have been exposed before humanity was ready. Our fleet numbers 4,000 vessels, Daniel continued. Our ground forces exceed 80 million trained soldiers. We have developed weapons that your scientists told us were impossible, because they assumed the limitations they taught us were absolute truth, rather than simply the boundaries of their own understanding. The Talaxian delegate spoke again, her feathered crest flat against her skull in distress. Ambassador, what do you intend to do with this force? Surely you must see that attacking the Vakari Dominion is suicide. They have conquered hundreds of species over thousands of years. Their fleet alone outnumbers your own. Their fleet outnumbers our own in this region of space, Daniel corrected. But the Vakari are spread thin. They have territory to defend, colonies to maintain, slave populations to control. We have nothing to defend except our homes, and we will not be defending for long. He pressed another button, and the display changed again. Red lines traced across the star map, showing attack routes that cut through Vakari space like knives. This is our battle plan. Phase 1 targets their supply lines and communication networks. Phase 2 strikes their shipyards and manufacturing centers. Phase 3 liberates the slave worlds they have conquered and recruits their populations to our cause. Phase 4 pushes into the heart of the Dominion itself. This is madness, Valconis said. You will be destroyed within months. Perhaps, but we will not be destroyed alone. Daniel's voice hardened. The Vakari have never faced an enemy willing to sacrifice everything for victory. They have never fought a species that would rather die than submit. They have conquered through fear, through terror, through the certainty that resistance is futile. We are about to show them what happens when fear no longer works. He turned slowly, looking at each delegation in turn. I did not come here to ask for your help. That request was denied weeks ago. I came here to inform you that humanity is going to war. Total war. Absolute war. The kind of war that ends only when one side is completely destroyed. And if you lose, the Talaxian asked quietly. Then we lose. But we will make such an example of the Vakari that no species will forget it for 10,000 years. We will burn their worlds and shatter their fleets and free their slaves. We will show the galaxy that even the weakest species can fight back against tyranny. He deactivated the holographic display and stood alone in the center of the chamber once more. The time for words is over. The time for diplomacy is over. The time for waiting and hoping and praying for salvation is over. His voice rose, echoing off the ancient walls. The time for war has come, and humanity is ready. The silence that followed was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. The 12 most powerful civilizations in the galaxy stared down at a single human who had just declared war on an empire that had never been defeated. And for the first time in thousands of years, the ancient powers of the galaxy felt something they had almost forgotten. The broadcast ended 3 hours after it began. Every word that Daniel Hart had spoken in the council chamber had been transmitted across the galaxy, reaching billions of beings on thousands of worlds. News networks that had never mentioned humanity before now spoke of nothing else. Diplomats, who had dismissed Earth as irrelevant, scrambled to send messages to their governments. The galaxy was waking up to a truth it had never expected. The primitives had been preparing for war. Daniel walked out of the council chamber, surrounded by security forces who no longer seemed certain of their purpose. They had been ordered to escort him, but no one had specified whether they were protecting him or preventing him from leaving. The confusion in their eyes told him everything he needed to know about the Council's state of mind. Kevin Brooks met him at the docking bay, his face pale and his hands shaking slightly. "Ambassador, Earth Command has been trying to reach you for the past hour. Half of them want to give you the highest medal we have. The other half want to arrest you for revealing classified military intelligence to hostile powers." "There are no hostile powers in this chamber," Daniel replied calmly. "Only frightened ones. You exposed 30 years of secret preparations. Every spy network in the galaxy now knows our fleet positions, our weapons capabilities, our battle plans. The Vrakari will have this information within days. The Vrakari will have the information we wanted them to have." Daniel kept walking toward the Resolute, his stride steady and confident. "Do you think I would reveal our true capabilities in a public broadcast? What I showed the Council was real, but it was not everything. Not even close." Kevin stopped in his tracks. "There is more?" Daniel glanced back at him with the ghost of a smile. "There is always more. Now prepare the ship for departure. We have a long journey home, and there is much to discuss." The Resolute departed Nexus Prime as diplomatic vessels from every species scrambled to follow. Some wanted to open negotiations with humanity. Others wanted to warn them against their foolish course of action. A few, Daniel suspected, wanted to offer secret assistance against the Vrakari, while publicly maintaining neutrality. The galaxy was full of cowards, but cowards could still be useful. Laura found him in the observation deck as the station shrank behind them. She had been crying earlier. He could see the traces around her eyes, but now her face was composed and her voice was steady. "You lied to me," she said. "For 15 years, you kept this secret while I thought I knew you." "I did not lie. I simply did not tell you everything." "That is the same thing." Daniel turned to face her. "No, it is not. A lie is meant to deceive. What I did was meant to protect. If you had known the truth, you would have carried that burden every day. Every conversation with alien diplomats would have been colored by the knowledge of what was coming. You would have second-guessed every word, every gesture, every moment of every negotiation. The secret would have destroyed you. You could have trusted me. I did trust you. I trusted you to be exactly who you are, a brilliant diplomat who believes in peace and understanding. That is why I never told you. The galaxy needed to see humanity as harmless. They needed to believe that we were exactly what we appeared to be. And you, Laura, were the most convincing evidence of our innocence." She stared at him for a long moment. "So I was a tool, a prop in your performance." "You were my friend. You still are. But yes, you were also necessary for the deception to work. I am not proud of that. But I would do it again to save our species." Megan Scott, the ship's communications officer, entered the observation deck before Laura could respond. She was young, barely 30, with nervous energy that made her seem even younger. In her hands she held a datapad with a message displayed on its screen. "Ambassador, we intercepted a transmission from the Keth Collective. It was sent on an open channel, so I think they wanted us to receive it." Daniel took the datapad and read the message. His expression did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes. "What does it say?" Laura asked. He handed her the pad. She read the words slowly, her breath catching in her throat. The message was brief. "We have watched civilizations rise and fall for 8 million years. We have seen empires born and die. We have witnessed every form of warfare, every strategy, every desperate gambit that thinking beings can devise. We have never seen a species lie to the entire galaxy for 30 years while preparing for total war directly under our observation. We find this deeply concerning. We also find it impressive. The Keth Collective will not interfere in your conflict with the Vakari Dominion. We wish to see what the Mayflies accomplish." Laura looked up. Mayflies? That is what they call us. Species that live and die in what seems like moments to them. They have existed for so long that individual civilizations are like insects to their perception. Daniel took the datapad back and read the message again. But they are watching now. For the first time in millions of years, they are genuinely curious about what we will do. Is that good or bad? I do not know yet. But it means we have their attention. That is more than any young species has achieved in recorded history. Kevin's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Ambassador, we are ready to enter faster-than-light travel. Course is set for Earth. Estimated arrival time is 17 days. Daniel walked to the intercom panel and pressed the button to respond. "Thank you, Commander. Take us home." The stars stretched into lines of light as the Resolute jumped into faster-than-light space. Behind them, Nexus Prime continued its endless rotation, home to powers that had ruled the galaxy since before humanity existed. Those powers were discussing what they had witnessed, debating what it meant, wondering if they had made a terrible mistake by ignoring the primitives for so long. Daniel stood at the observation window and watched the swirling colors of faster-than-light travel. In 93 days, the Vakari fleet would reach the first human colony. In 93 days, the war would begin. Everything he had worked for over 30 years, every secret meeting, every hidden shipyard, every weapon developed in laboratories that officially did not exist, all of it would be tested against the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. "Do you really think we can win?" Laura asked quietly, standing beside him. Daniel did not answer for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft but certain. "I think we have no choice but to try, and I think that when the galaxy sees what humanity is capable of, they will never look at us the same way again." The Resolute flew on through the darkness, carrying within it the declaration that would reshape the future of every species in existence. The time for war had come, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what mayflies could do. The blue light cut through the darkness of his small room like a knife. Ambassador Daniel Hart opened his eyes slowly and stared at the holographic message floating above his bed. He had been sleeping poorly for weeks now, and this late-night summons did not surprise him. He had been waiting for it, dreading it, knowing what it would say before he even read the words. He sat up and waved his hand through the projection to expand it. The seal of the Galactic Council glowed at the top of the message, 12 symbols representing 12 ancient species who ruled over thousands of worlds. Humanity was not among them. Humanity was barely a footnote in their records, a young species that had only discovered faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. The message was short. The Council had voted. Humanity's request for military assistance against the Vakari Dominion had been denied. Not a single voice had spoken for Earth and her colonies. Daniel read the message 3 times. Each time, he hoped the words would change. They did not. He stood up and walked to the small window of his quarters, aboard the Earth vessel Resolute. Outside, the stars burned in the endless black, cold and distant and uncaring. Somewhere out there, a fleet of 3,000 Vakari warships was moving toward human space. They would reach the outer colonies in 93 days. After that, they would push inward, burning everything in their path until they reached Earth itself. The door chime sounded. Daniel did not turn around. He knew who it was. Laura Mitchell entered the room quietly. She had been his chief advisor for 15 years, traveling with him from one alien world to another, helping him understand the strange customs and politics of galactic civilization. She was smart and calm and practical, and right now Daniel could hear the fear in her breathing, even though she tried to hide it. "You saw the message," she said. It was not a question. They abandoned us. Daniel's voice was flat, empty of emotion. He had spent 30 years as a diplomat, learning to control his feelings, to show only what he wanted others to see. But tonight, alone with his oldest friend, he felt the weight of those 30 years pressing down on him. "They are afraid," Laura said, stepping closer to stand beside him at the window. "The Vrakari have never been defeated. Every species that tried to fight them was destroyed or enslaved. The Council remembers those wars even if we do not. So, they will watch us die instead. They will watch from a safe distance and tell themselves there was nothing they could do." Laura was 52 years old. With gray hair she refused to die, and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had given her life to the diplomatic service, believing that words and patience could solve any problem. Now, those beliefs were being tested. "How long do we have?" he asked. "The Vrakari fleet will reach the colony on New Helsinki in 93 days. After that, New Stockholm and New Copenhagen will fall within weeks. The inner colonies might hold for another year if we are lucky. And Earth?" Laura hesitated. 2 years, maybe less. Daniel nodded slowly. He had known the numbers already, but hearing them spoken aloud made them real in a way that reports and projections could not. "I need to address the Council," he said. Laura stared at him. "Daniel, that is not possible. The Council does not grant audiences to species under Category 3 status. We are barely above primitive classification in their eyes. They see us as children playing with technology we do not understand. Then it is time they learned otherwise. They will not listen. They have already made their decision." Daniel moved away from the window and began pulling on his formal diplomatic uniform, the dark blue jacket with silver trim that he had worn to 100 negotiations over 3 decades. "I am not going to change their minds, Laura. I know that. The Council made their choice, and nothing I say will make them send their fleets to save us." "Then why go at all?" He stopped and looked at her with an expression she had never seen before. There was something dark in his eyes, something that had been hidden for years, and was now rising to the surface. "Because they need to understand something. They need to see what they have done, and they need to hear what comes next." Laura felt a chill run through her. "Daniel, what are you planning?" "Tell him to set course for Nexus Prime. We leave within the hour. Nexus Prime is 17 days away. By the time we arrive and go through the diplomatic channels to request an audience, weeks will have passed. The Council could refuse to see you entirely." Daniel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "They will see me. I will make certain of that." He finished dressing and walked toward the door. Laura grabbed his arm, stopping him. "We have worked together for 15 years, she said quietly. "I have followed you across the galaxy without question because I trusted your judgment. But right now, I need you to tell me what you are thinking. What is this really about?" Daniel was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost gentle. "Do you remember what I told you when we first met? When you asked me why I became a diplomat? You said you believed that violence was the last refuge of the incompetent, that any problem could be solved with enough patience and understanding. I believed that for most of my life. I believed it when we made first contact with the Morvathi. I believed it when we negotiated trade agreements with the Talaxians. I believed it even when the Vrakari began attacking our outer settlements." He paused and took a deep breath. "I do not believe it anymore." Laura released his arm. Her hand was trembling. "The galaxy sees us as weak," Daniel continued. "They see a young species, alone and frightened, begging for protection. And because we appear weak, they feel no shame in abandoning us. They tell themselves that our destruction is unfortunate, but inevitable. They will mourn us briefly, and then forget we ever existed. And you want to change that perception. I want to show them the truth." Daniel opened the door and stepped into the corridor. "Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not helpless, and humanity will not go quietly into extinction, while the galaxy watches and does nothing. He walked toward the bridge, leaving Laura standing alone in the doorway. She watched him go, and for the first time in 15 years, she realized she did not truly know the man she had been following. The diplomat she remembered was gone. Something else had taken his place. Something that the galaxy was not ready for. She took a deep breath and followed him. Whatever was coming, she would face it at his side. That much, at least, had not changed.